58 kilometers to the southwest of Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, in Komine Musambira, Prefecture Gitarama, lies a small village known as Muchiranze. 38 years ago, nobody knew that this little-known village would be the birthplace of one of the greatest African freedom fighters, gallant soldier, and a brave combatant son of Rwanda, Major General Fred Rwigema Gisa. The little small boy Gisa was born of a Christian family in 1957 at the genesis of the much publicized conflict augmented by the selfish colonialists who were starting to tear apart the united people who had peacefully lived together for centuries. Fred's father, Kimonyo, had 2 wives, and Fred was born of the second wife, Gatarina Mukandirima, who bore him 2 other daughters. Fred's mother recalls very vividly his early childhood.
Aho twari dutuye hariya yitwa Mukiranzi niho Fred Rwigema yavukiye, naho kuri iyo nzu n'urutoki n'inturusu, ariko aha hose ni isambu yacu uko ngana hari family nini, ariko ngira ngo aho navuga yavukiye gusa kubwe ni hariya aho izo nturusu ntoya ziri bitari cyane, bitari ibyo hakurya hagati aho ngaho. Duhunga afite imyaka 3, turahunga tujya mu bisambu turaramo, mfite inda y'uyu mukobwa, ariko ndi yaracutse. Fred yarapfucutse, mu gitondo turahunga bashenye amazu duhunga ubwo inka barazitwara, nta twahungaye turagenda tujya ahantu naberetseho misiyoni yo Kamonyi ngira ngo mwahabonye. Mfite Fred ari umwana w'imyaka 3, mfite inda y'amezi 3, ariko nanjye ntabizi. Tugeze mu misiyoni Kimonyo baramufunga, kumujyana kumufunga bamujyana ahantu ku Kibuye baramufunga, natwe duhungira ahantu hitwa Ikigembe, twamara umwaka Kimonyo afunze. Azize mbese babyo bavuga politiki zuko bavaga ngo batutse mu gihugu ko bari bameze. Noneho ubwo afunguwe tukomeza gushaka kugira ngo tujye mu mahanga, n'abandi benshi ariko baragiye, ariko twe twasigaye ahantu nkaho bataratera turasigara. Nyuma Kimonyo afunguwe, ubwo Fred yari umwana utabizi. Nyuma aje abantu baduteranyiriza amafaranga, dushaka imodoka iradupakira, turahunga tugeze ku mupaka wa Uganda. Twaje mu modoka y'i Kigali, tugeze ku mupaka wa Uganda tubona amabasi abarizo zidutwara zitujyana Shungereza mu buhunzi, ahantu impunzi zose zari ziri mu makampo bubaka ubuzu bwa burende. Mbese turahaba baratugaburira iposho kugeza rero igihe baduhaye amasambu, ubwo batuvana Shungereza maze kubyara Joy, batujyana ahantu Gahunge ariho hitwa mbese mu Zakabarurengera.
Crossing borders, rivers, hills, and through thick forests, the next destination in Uganda was a place called Kahunge, 54 kilometers to the east of Fort Portal town in the present Chibale district. Here, a reception center was set up to receive and prepare for all the incoming Rwandese refugees. It was a very trying time for a pastoralist family, now without cattle, to start afresh from scratch. They were faced with 3 options. 1, to try and adjust themselves to land cultivation, which they had never tried before. 2, to stoop low, go and look after cows of some pastoralist Ugandans for pay, and option 3 was to get jobs as laborers anywhere available in the country.
Well, I first got to know the late Major General Fred Rwigema in 1963 when we met in one of the refugee camps in Uganda where we were both living as refugees. That was at first time in Ankole, in a place called Nshungezi. Then we grew up together in that camp. Then we shifted and went to Toro in another camp in a place called Gahunje, near Kamwenje, district headquarters. And all those years we grew up together. We studied together in a primary school. We only separated when I went to senior secondary school in Intare in Mbarara. And later on he went to Mbarara High School. But we were not in the same class in primary. There were some difficulties. We used to face a lot of difficulties in paying school fees and so on and so forth, and many times people used to miss years and were not able to continue the studies straight away. So that's how we had a difference I was a bit ahead of him at the time of during the time of studies, especially in the...
Unfortunately, Fred's father died soon after settling in Kahunje, thus leaving the family burden to his wife, who struggled through thick and thin to sustain it.
Gisa amaze gupfa yarabimbazaga cyane ati ubu utekereza ko mama tuzasubira mu Rwanda, amuhakanije ntabwo mbizi, wenda hari igihe wenda abantu bazasubirayo, ati se nk'ubu dukuze tugatekereza kugira ngo dutahe mwebwe musanga byabanezeza mukiriho tugatahana. Nanjye nkamusubiza ndetse ubu mwabishobora mwebwe, ati dukuze nkanjye nkuze nkaba mfite n'abandi wenda twagira inama ariko tugashaka gutaha iwacu ngo natwe tumenye iwacu, namwe mwakumva bibashimishije avuga nti mubishoboye mukabikora byaba ari byiza natwe tukazataha iwacu nkatwe bakuru.
As years rolled by, Fred and his little sister Joy were ready for school. Fred's intimacy with his sister grew very strong and they were always inseparable.
Fred yari musaza wanjye ariko at the same time ari n'inshuti yanjye, dukundana cyane aho tugiye hose dufatanye ku ntugu. Ubundi most of the time twaba tugenda mu muhanda nkananirwa akanterura kandi turi bakuru twese akampeka, so sinzi ukuntu nabigereranya. Ari umusaza w'umuntu ari n'inshuti, numvaga byose ari kimwe kuko naramukundaga, bituma na twembi twumvikana ku bintu byose twakoraga. Ari ukubeshya tukabeshya hamwe, ari kuvugisha ukuri tukavugisha ukuri hamwe, yaba arize nanjye nkarira, n'abandi akababara ko bankubise, bamukubise nanjye nkababara. I remember one time papa yaramukubise yakoze amakosa, nsanze yamukubise kandi ari igihe wamureze. Yes, hari ibyo yari yakoze ndamurega, mureze papa aramukubita aramuhana nk'abandi bana, ariko yararize ari igihe umureze ndatangira nanjye ndarira. So my father got okay, umuregeye iki sasa ko umukubise kandi ukarira. So nicyo cyerekanaga ko turi inshuti cyane.
The only primary school set up for the refugees, known as Mpanga Primary School, was located 7 kilometers from the refugee camps. The school still stands as a testimony but has been upgraded. It was here that Fred did his primary education from 1965 up to 1972, at the end of which he performed very well and was offered a place at one of the best secondary schools in Uganda, Mbarara High School, in 1973. Here, Fred found more boys from other refugee camps with whom he became friends. Not only did he get friends from Rwandese, but also from Ugandans, among whom was Brigadier Chef Ali, then known as Museveni, who became his very good and close friend. Fred's background started influencing him as he mingled with other students at Mbarara High School. The love for his people, the need for freedom not for only his people but the entire Africa kept growing in him, especially at the time when Uganda was in the crisis of dictator Idi Amin.
You could find Gisa and Museveni very well aware about the war which was in Nigeria, which was in Ghana. They were all equipped with such information.
We developed friendship with the late Rwigema as early as 1974. When he had joined the Barra High School with me, and we were both sort of recruits because we had joined the school, so we were being teased together. When I was having always interest in politics, and when we became friends, I started to keep on discussing with him, and after discussing with him several times, we started going together to read in the library. And this is how we together developed this spirit of, because we used to read Frelimo books and other liberation literature. And by so doing, we started to have, including, say, poems. Because I remember before we left for Tanzania, or Mozambique for that matter, we were both reading a poem which was coming from a book called When the Bullets Begin to Flower. And this poem was that poem which made us to go, which we went and read together in the library, was saying that it is not what you want or what I want, but what the nation wants. And through this we developed confidence to live and go to join the revolution.
I recall one incident when he used to move with another man who is Chef Ali, and by name now is called Museveni. By then he was Museveni. And one time they approached one of the teachers, Mr. Ben Wakatogoro. They said they wanted to address members of staff. And the man, he wondered what these young men wanted to tell the members of staff. So he approached us in the staff at break time. He said, I have young men who would like to talk to you. So, well, the members of staff said, okay, if they have anything, tell us. Let's admit them in the staff room. So these young men, that is Gisa, as he was called, he was allowed in the staff room with Museveni to come in the staff room and address us. So they started talking. By that time, I think that's when Mao Zedong had died in China. And in Uganda, the Archbishop had been killed, the Anglican Archbishop Janan Ruum. So these young men, when they came, they said, the country, they said the nation the world has lost a big man, a very important man, who was fighting for freedom in China. And then they started talking about, about the French Revolution. They said these people, they rose and fought. These people were oppressing them in France. And then they said, we Ugandans, what are we doing? Why can't we rise and fight Amin? So when they started talking about that, we are scared. Because by that time, we had this intelligence. Could be members of staff even, and then with the students. So we are scared of what we are saying. We ran away from the staff room. And we left those young men there. And after we had left, they also went out. And the following day, they had left the school.
Fred and his friends' destination was none other than Tanzania, then the base of Pan-Africanism. Here, young Pan-Africanists converged to undergo military training with the aim of totally liberating Africa. For a complete year, 18-year-old Fred and his colleagues lived in this famous house located in the heart of Dar es Salaam, known as Kinondoni House.
We met in Tanzania. I think I was 16 and he was, maybe 18. We were united by the fact that we were the youngest two people in the group. So, and from that time we just became just like brothers.
For that period, the young recruits were never allowed beyond the compound of this house. It is in Dar es Salaam that Fred first met Museveni, then training to fight against colonialists for the independence of Mozambique.
Jama, I think I first met him in 1976. We were recruiting young boys from Uganda to take them to Mozambique for training. The person who recruited the Jama was Otafire. Otafire, I think, had been in Mbara working as a youth worker. And then I think there he got in touch with this group in Mbara High School.
Dar es Salaam became Fred's second home as he trained and crossed over to Mozambique to join Frelimo fighters.
After a period when we had not been together, I learned that actually I got the news from his mother when I went back for holidays. When I went home for holidays, the mother told me that Fred had disappeared. They did not know where he was. Actually, the story was they thought he had died, because when he was going, he never told them. He never told me, because we were even not in touch at that time. So this was over a long period. Nobody knew where he was.
Most of the time we stayed in Mozambique, in a place called Montiquez, which is in Cabo Delgado province. At the beginning, the life was not easy because we were starving. We did not have enough food. I don't know whether this was part of the training, but it later on made us be firm. So the life there was good because we were being trained, we had hope, we were being politicized and all this.
Fred's determination to liberate his people, let alone the entire Africa, did not end with the independence of Mozambique. The experience he acquired later became very instrumental in the struggle against fascist Idi Amin in Uganda under Fronasa led by Yoweri Museveni. The struggle which saw the fall of Idi Amin in 1979 was but just a preparation for what was later to be yet another bigger one, led by Museveni against dictator Milton Obote. The war, which basically started in Luwero Triangle, central Uganda, spread like bushfire as Fred initially took charge of commanding fighters in the western part of Uganda. This gave Fred a chance to be in touch with his mother again.
1985, we were together when the forces moved from Luwero Triangle and went to the mountains, Urenzura Mountains. That was then another time we happened to operate together. So during the movement to the mountains, in the different battles that we fought on the way as we were going, it was very clear he performed very well as a very good commander in the different operations he used to carry out, even when we had reached the mountains.
With the crushing of the remnant of the defeated military junta soldiers and the total liberation of Uganda, Fred earned himself the post of Deputy Army Commander of the NRA.
Gisa, Major General. RO 16.
In that same period of time, Fred had to fulfill one of the most important obligations of life. Fred had chosen himself a young, beautiful partner, Jeanette. In 1989, in a colorful ceremony, Fred laid his best half to the altar at Namirembe Cathedral and pronounced, "I win," before a fully packed church.
I give you this ring as a sign of our marriage with my body. I honor you. All that I am, I give to you. And all that I have, share with you. Within the love of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Amen. Okay. The same thing. Janet, you better tell me.
For marriage with my body and honor you. All that I am, I give to you, and all that I have, share with you, with the love of God, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
The church ceremonies were followed by a grand, colorful reception which was held at the State House in Entebbe and was honored with the presence of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni. The reception was followed by the evening of jubilation at a friend's residence in one of the residential areas in the outskirts of Kampala. Fred, now a family man, lived with his wife Janet in Kansanga, another residential area in Kampala. Fred's love for children was rewarded with the couple being blessed with 2 children. The eldest boy, Junior Gisa Rugamba, and the youngest sweet little girl, Teta Gisa Tracy.
Ikintu wenda naba muziho ni ukuntu yakundaga urugo rwe cyane. Natanga n'urugero, hari nk'igihe hari intambara muri Uganda, barwaniraga ahantu hitwa Magamaga. Nabyeyi Junior adahari, aza nyuma y'iminsi 2. Hanyuma ubwo akajyaza nk'isenye z'ijoro, agahindurira umwana, akamuterura, akamuhoza. Nta nicyo najyaga nkora muri icyo gihe, kuko umwana yarakiri muto cyane. Akamuhindurira, akamuhoza, agasiga muryamishije, agasubira iyo ngiyeho barwaniraga hitwaga Magamaga. Ntago hari hafi, hari urugendo. Agasubiraho nk'isa 9 z'ijoro. Buri gihe akajyaza isaha 4 z'ijoro, agasubiraho saa 9.
A year later, Fred was to be further elevated to the post of Deputy Minister of State for Defense in Uganda, a position which gave him time and a chance to plan for the execution of his long-term objectives of leading his people back home from exile and the liberation of entire Rwanda from the fascist sectarian regime of dictator Habyarimana. The discreet plan, which never leaked despite the involvement of top members of RPFA, is indicative of determination the Rwanda refugees had to return home by any possible available means.
Bajya kujya mu ntambara ndabizi. Umunsi bagendeyeho n'isaha bagendeye, yaje kudusezeraho. Ndamubaza, ndetse ubu ugiye he? ati tugiye kurwana na Habyarimana natwe dutaha iwacu. Ndaceceka mbanza no guceceka, ageze ati wiceceka mudusabire tuzabonana namwe tubacyuye mutashye mugiye mu Rwanda. Tubasezeraho baragenda.
I remember icyo gihe yaravuye Amerika mu September, anyura Nairobi, nari Nairobi, araza arantelefona njya ku airport n'abantu ba Uganda Embassy, tujya kumufata ku airport. Tuvuyeyo abwira abantu bo mu embassy ko adashobora kurara aho bamuteguriye, ari buze kurarana nanjye mu rugo aho nabaga. Araza, we went straight tujya mu rugo iwacu, turarya turasangira. Hari abantu yari supposed kumitinga Nairobi, tujya in the evening, we had dinner, turya hamwe badutumiye. Turangije arambwira ati ndashaka ko dutaha kare, atari ibintu ushaka ko tuganira. So turatahana, driver tugejeje mu rugo arambwira ati ndashaka ko tureba ahantu twicara tukaganira, kubera ko hari ibintu ushaka kuvuga kandi ntashaka umuntu uwo ari we wese kubyumva. Ndavuga ntacyo. Byari nko mu masaa 5 y'ijoro. Tujya mu cyumba turikingirana, arambwira ati hari aho nzajya kandi ati nizeye ko uzabyumva kandi ukahambera nka mushiki wanjye. Ati ndabizi kuri very hard working woman, ati ibizaba byose uzabifesinge nkuko bibonye. Ati hari umugore wanjye size n'abana 2, hari mama wanjye nkunda na mushiki wanjye mutoya nsize. Ati ikizabaho cyose ati uzitegure kucyumva. Ese ni kucyumva za gutyo? Ati ndabikubwira gusa ati sishaka ko bizaguca intege. Ati dushobora gutaha anytime tukajya mu Rwanda. Avuze mu Rwanda avuga murashaka se kujya kurwana? Arambwira ati bishobotse. Ati dushobora gupfa cyangwa se dushobora gukira.
Inkuru yo gutera u Rwanda, ubwo nari mfite umwana teta yari afite iminsi 7. Hanyuma ariko ubwo narabibonaga ko amaherezo bazagenda, ariko sinari nzi ngo bazagenda ubuhe munsi, ntabwo yarambwiye umunsi bazatereraho. Ariko kubera ko numvaga mbyiteguye umutima, nabifashe nk'uko abimbwiye ko agiye.
On September the 30th, 1990, Fred's plan hatched and his dream of leading his people back home came true. That constant urge not only within him, but also from a people who had looked at him as a Moses, overrode all antagonistic forces that could have probably compelled him to turn a deaf ear to that call. All was set and the plan was executed. The exodus was effected at night, and by the morning of the 1st October, Fred had done his duty of leading his people into the promised land.
He told me about trying to make contact and to organize so that they could, in the end, struggle peacefully for their return. But he didn't tell me about invading Rwanda. He never told me about this, and I was not happy with this.
What were your reaction when he told you about his intentions to have back his people, not the invasion?
That was all right. I had no problem with that one. If they had done it politically, if they had... in fact, that's what I advised him. I said, you organize politically, you go to the UN, you go to OAU. First, make your case known so that it's not... Because one of the mistakes was that we sort of ambushed international opinion. International opinion was not prepared for their struggle. And then they just straight away transferred it to a military stage. The military stage should always be a last stage in fighting. So that first people know your different standpoints. Now these boys did not exhaust that. That was one of their mistakes. They just misused our base here to go and start a war without proper preparation. So we're not happy with that. That way. You remember we denounced them, but we didn't follow it up. We were not vindictive with them, because on the one hand we understood their frustration, but we also did not like their indiscipline, because this was indiscipline. You see, it was indiscipline to use our territory and use our army to start such a big operation. Was very irresponsible for them.
The crossing point was the small border town of Kajitumba. It is at this point, in this very customs house, that Fred sat, called the fighters to order, and drew their attention to the fact that they were home and urged them to swear never to allow to go into exile again. For the first time after 34 years, Fred was back home, this time old enough to understand the feelings of being a Munyarwanda citizen in his country, Rwanda. On that fateful morning of the 2nd October 1990, at 9:30 a.m., Fred mobilized his fighters and started advancing towards Kigali. As to what happened, the full story is narrated by the eyewitness and Fred's faithful bodyguard, Captain Happy.
Twaje tuva muri Uganda nyine Kampala itariki 30 z'ukwezi kwa 9 muri 1990 twahagurutse nka saa 6 za nijoro. Urugendo ruhari rero kuvayo kugera inahangaha ni rurerure. Twageze hano ari mu gitondo, ari yo nyine itariki ya mbere. Leta Fande Fred yageze hano ku mupaka hano, uyu ni umupaka w'u Rwanda na Uganda. Uko twaje rero twaturutse muri ya muhanda uri munsi ya musozi ureba, uyu musozi ni Miramahiro. Turaza gutya ari hakurya niyo zo customs za Uganda. Hanyuma wamanuka agera hariho kaburimbo itangiriye, aho niho u Rwanda rutangiriye. Niho twasize imodoka, turazamuka gutya n'amaguru kugeza igihe twagere hari hageze imodoka twayisize hano inyuma, tuzamuka n'amaguru acumbika muri iriya nzu ureba idasakaye, irangi rya risa n'iryavuyeho. Aho ngaho rero niho twaraye ijoro ry'itariki ya mbere. Hanyuma itariki ya kabiri nibwo twahavuye tujya nyine guhura n'abari baduteye, kuko bari bamenye ko twahageze mu Rwanda. Ubundi bari batarafominga za battalion neza, ariko kubera yuko abasirikare b'u Rwanda bari baje nyine nabo baje kureba icyabaye ku mupaka, bahise Leta Fande Fred yohereza force imwe na Leta Adamu ica inzira yo hasi y'igitaka, ica Nyabwishongwizi muri uruhande rw'iburyo. Hanyuma Leta Bunyenyezi nawe akomeza mu ruhande rw'ibumoso n'abandi basirikare, natwe dukomeza ya kaburimbo na Leta Fande Fred tugana Nyabwishongwizi. Muri iyi nzira turagenda duca munsi ya rutoki, niho twatangiye twurira uriya musozi wa Nyabwishongwizi nyine ureba, tuzamuka muri ako kayira ureba tugera hejuru hariya ku gati, niho twahagaze hejuru yaho. Aka gasozi turiho niko Nyabwishongwizi. Hanyuma hariya hepfo bareba n'Akagera, niko kagabanya u Rwanda na Tanzania. Niho abasirikare ba Leta Bunyenyezi bari aba Leta Adamu aho bari bungubu ni nyuma y'umusozi ntiwababona. Hanyuma Adui yaturutse muri kaburimbo hariya ureba hageze nk'inka hakurya mu ikona rya kabiri. Adui niho yaturutse azana kajipe, ageze hano mu ikona rya kabiri, hano ureba hasi hageze nk'umugabo uri ku igare, niho yahagaritse akamodoka ke. Natwe twari tumaze gutunguka inyuma hano ku musozi, aho turi bugere hano inyuma gatoya. Hano turi ni aho Adui yari ahagaze, ajya kurasa nyine bareba kari hagati kari hejuru y'umusozi kari gatoya n'ubu ngubu nuko cyakuze cyane ubundi kari gatoya cyane niho twari dutungutse Adu yari hano abonye dutungutse ari hejuru ku gasozi nibwo yarasaga ayo masasu nyine yarashe makeya havuye muri rimwe ryafashe Leta Van Fred. Leta Van Fred yari yicaye kuri iryo buye nuko Adu aturutse hakurya hariya aho nakweretse mu muhanda wa kaburimbo nuko arahaguruka yavuze ko ati Adu yameye kujya nicyo yavuze hanyuma intambara yatangiye nuko atubonye Adu yatubonye hano ku musozi yarashe ayo masasu make nakubwiye rimwe niryo ryafashe Leta Van Fred nkano mu gahanga nicyo kitwemeza yuko no kugira ngo tuvuge yuko atari twe twari target ya Adu nukubera yuko nyine ryamufashe hano ku gahanga wenda kwegera ku musatsi niryo sasu ryamufashe kubera yuko yari na muremure yadusumbaga ariko kugira ngo yari yicaye ntago iryo sasu biba ryaramufashe ko twese twari duhari ariko nta wundi muntu wigeze hakomerekera aho ngaho twari turi nuko amaje kuraswa twabonye ko yavuze ko ati Adu yameni piga noneho tubona acitse intege aricara hasi turamufata twagerageje kumubaza icyabaye ariko ntiyashoboye kuvuga irindi jambo naho ngaho nicyo jambo yavuze ryonyine mu byerekeye ibyo mwambazaga ko yaravuze twarababaye tuhita tuva ku gasozi twari turiho turamuterura duhamagara abaganga ariko bagiriye kuhagera basanze nyine yapfuye nuko twahamaze umunsi twaramanutse tujya hepfo ariko ubwo intambara yo ntabwo yahagaze yarakomeje kuko n'abandi basirikare ntabwo bari babizi dukomeza no kubisha kugeza igihe nyine abakuru bacu baje kubibwira abasirikare bose kuko nta muntu wari ubizi hangewe icyo navuga kuri Leta Van Fred ngewe nari umwe mu biba bodyguard be ariko nari maranye nawe igihe nta kibazo najyaga mubonaho nubwo yari cyongozi wacu bwose twamufataga nka mukuru wacu kandi akaba natuyobora tugeze mu Rwanda rero cyatubabaje cyane twari tururayemo rimwe itariki ya 2 nyine ubwo yapfaga nta kintu yatubwiye nta n'icyo yabwiye abandi basirikare twari twazanye mu Rwanda ngewe amagambo navuga nsezerera kuri Leta Van Fred nuko Imana yamuha iruhuko ridashira nibyo navuga gusa nta kintu nasubiza
nabyakiriye ko byari ngombwa yuko byari ngombwa kugira ngo wenda umuntu ajya kurwana yiteguye gupfa cyangwa gukira kuko ari twarwaniraga ngo dutahe nabo batahe iwabo ngo bo kuzahera mu mahanga navuze ngo nibyo Imana imuha iruhuko ridashira nanjye mbikomeza mvuga ngo cyokora Imana idufashe urugamba yatangiye kururwana rwo kudasubira inyuma tuzataha iwacu Rwanda.
Bantelefonnye around 3 o'clock nijoro. I remember n'umugore wa telefone arambwira ati Joy ati nizeye ko udacika umugongo atariko ati Fred yapfuye ati kandi ati turagushaka kugomba kuze enaha ejo mu gitondo. Of course aho kanya nari ndyamye cika intege mera nabi nka saa 10 narenjinga ntangira ntekereza ukuntu ushaka kugenda iba ngiye mu Rwanda iba ngiye Uganda ntabwo narenza honye kuko numvaga ko ngomba kujya mu Rwanda bishobotse nagenda mu Rwanda nkanareba naho yapfiriye naho bamuhamye. Mu gitondo cya kare mfata indege nari mfite ticket nza Kampala ngumana na mama nkuko bisanzwe nyine agahinda tukagumamo.
Inkuru nayimenye ninjoro nayimenye ninjoro haje mama we na mushiki we witwa Jacqueline na Gregory na madamu we n'undi mugabo witwa Mutenda nkibabona gutya ndababwira nti nabimenye nti niki ko nabonaga batabababaye nayimenye ninjoro.
Even before I was directly told about what happened, I had a feeling something had gone wrong. This feeling came to me, and I even talked to some of my friends that I was feeling uncomfortable, that something had gone amiss, something had gone wrong. This was in my feelings, first of all. Secondly, it was in my judgment about what was going on the ground that I was receiving from the news about what was. I could detect there was something wrong. I had dreamt. I used it to dream. I didn't want to say I was feeling. I just said I had dreamt that even Fred had died. But this was just a feeling. There was something in me that something had gone wrong with Fred. Then I think it was on the 7th day when I actually got to know from someone that something had gone wrong. And this was after I had this feeling. I called somebody in Kampala and told him to go straight to Kajitumba and follow through wherever they are, to go and make sure he sees Fred himself, talk to him, and then this person should come back to me and tell me that he has seen Fred, not that he has heard from him through some other person or something. The first day he did not succeed. I told him I think on the 5th day. On the 5th is when I sent him. So he went that very morning, met some commanders, tried to talk to him. I think some people didn't want the news to spread yet, so they told him he was somewhere in the field and that this fellow could not see him. So the fellow insisted. He said he had somebody's message. He didn't even tell them it was my message, and that it was extremely urgent. So they blocked his way. He couldn't make it. So the fellow came back, talked to me on the phone. He told me Fred was alive, but that he was in the field. So I said, no, I'm not convinced. Go back and tell whoever is there. I remember I told him to talk to the late Major Bayingana, to talk to late Major Bunyenyezi, and so many others. Say that now to go and tell them that it is me and I want somebody to deliver a direct message to him. Because I wanted to prove whether he was actually alive. As my feelings were telling me he wasn't alive. Well, I'm really saying this story, it's fun as it sounds, people may not believe it, but this is what was happening. And so the fellow went back, I think same night. So he insisted. Again, he couldn't make any headway until somebody, a friend of his who was privy to the information that Fred had died, actually told him. He said, you quietly go and tell him that Fred is dead. Then he called me and told me, yes, that actually he has proven that Fred had died. Well, I tried to ask what he had died of. The fellow simply said he didn't know, and that even the person who told him didn't want to go further. So that's when, of course, I confirmed my kind of feeling. But this time, I did not now even talk to my wife about it, with whom I was. So I just kept quiet. I had already started winding up. I had already told the commanders of the college that I wasn't going to continue the course and that I wanted to go back. I told them right on the first day. And so I was busy packing, handing over things. I wanted to leave after handing over everything. I didn't want to leave any debts, anything behind at the college. So I took my time to pack my things and leave the college.
In combat, you can't predict whether you will be over. So his days came just as it was just a tragic event.
By then, when we knew that he has died, we tried all our best to conceal it. So we concealed it from other officers, junior officers, or other soldiers to know it, because by then we would fade. If they knew, we would fade. It was our second day. Some of us were not even were not known like he was.
So when I got the news of his death, then I knew the Rwandan people had lost a very dear leader, someone who could unite and keep the society disciplined. I even believe it now, but that is how I got it. It was a shock, first of all. Secondly, I knew the people had lost a person who could unite people more and who was a strict disciplinarian.
No, our training expects really does not matter. You know that he has died. He has died not stealing. He has died performing a mission. And the only thing that you wish is to see the end of that mission he has died for. So that's normal. That's very normal with us. It's if he dies, you get more angry. You feel that you should achieve what he died trying to achieve.
And that was the end of Fred, but not the end of the struggle. His death further enkindled in the fighters the urge to fight on and accomplish the work he had started, the fruits of which were seen when the gallant fighters of RPA crushed the dictatorial murderous sectarian regime of Habyarimana, restored peace and sanity in Rwanda, and ushered in a new era where once again the people of Rwanda would live as brothers and sisters irrespective of their ethnic differences, thus confirming the fact that Fred's death was not in vain.
Fred Rwigema mu by'ukuri yaba nari nzi kwivugana nakubise ikivugo, ariko uko muzi uko kandi anagaragara ni intwari koko, ni umugabo ukwiriye ishema, ni umuntu ukwiriye ibisigo ibisingizo cyane bishingiye ku butwari yagize kuva akiri umwana, ku bitekerezo yagejeje ku banyarwanda no kwinjiza abanyarwanda bagenzi be mu gihugu no guhumuriza abari imbere ko bagiye kwigobotora ubutegetsi bubi bikaba byarabaye.
Fred Gisa Rwigema was a great man who had to live an ordinary life. His greatness, I think, prevailed over such issues as harassment, segregation, and outright opposition by certain forces during his time in exile. In my opinion, his greatest ambition or dilemma was to successfully launch the armed struggle to return his people to their motherland, and not necessarily to see the end of the struggle. Not many men can wish to sow what they will never harvest. Only men of conviction like him can do this, or could do this. The forces against him were such that self-preservation was impossible. And I believe he knew 75% he was likely to be killed in action. I also know that he had an option to take the matter to the OAU or comfortably enjoy the benefits of being the Deputy Minister of Defense in Uganda. But his conviction propelled him to act and risk. I think this is called human sacrifice, which can only be attributed to great men. I also knew Fred as a man who envisaged a united people of Rwanda. I have faith that those who took over after his death will honor his wish and build up to that vision. And I can assure him that all his friends miss him. But we all appreciate that he did exactly what was expected of him. He will always live with us.
It was interesting to see how active he was in the struggle, how committed he was. So I knew him as well as that during the war, and then after the war, we shared a few close relationships, even with the people we associated with. So during that time, that's when I knew him as a freedom fighter. But I knew him much more closely during the war, during the Bush War. As a matter of fact, the day we were going to start the war, when we were going to attack Kawamba, I am the one who went and informed him, and immediately he didn't hesitate and joined us, and we went together right from the beginning. He was among the first 27 who attacked Kawamba.
Wasanga azi guhuza abantu, kubashyira hamwe, ukabona akunzwe n'abantu benshi, cyane cyane akunzwe n'abasirikare kandi bamwizeye. Cyane kimwe ko wasanga baha icyizere w'umuri iruhande, akumva yuko ari iruhande rw'umuntu ushoboye, aho yamubwira ati gihanga akabona yahajya ari ntacyo yikanga. Icyo nta wundi muntu wari ugifite mu twari turi hamwe bose. Ikindi basanga afite nuko mu ngorane twagiraga yamenyaga kuzidukuramo. Nzi ko twanagize nk'ebyiri nini mu muryango, ariko niwe washoboye kuzidukuramo. Hari izo twagize muri executive committee y'umuryango.
Uganda is independent.